I'm Chief Photographer Adam Napick with KOAA TV in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You're watching NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat. Here's your host, Janet West.
Good morning, everybody. We're on day 3 at NAB Show Live. And on behalf of Broadcast Beat, I want to introduce you to a show on sex. Any more people coming to join and talk to us? Okay, what I want to talk about is not sexy toys, guys, but very much the gender balance in this industry, from engineering to marketing, from camera person to audio mixer. I want to attempt to guide my guests into the topic of gender balance in this industry. We don't have enough women. There are a lot of women in production, but on the technical side, we don't have enough. This is not a session of us women against you guys. Don't worry about that. It's not a bitch session. But it's more a look at how to create a better balance of men and women at all levels in sound, in audio, in IP, whatever, and try and attract more women in the industry. I'm joined in our first half by some really experienced women in the industry. So let me start by introducing Barbara DeHart, Vice President of Desktop Business and Corporate Marketing at Telestream. Next to her is Glodina Conan-Lostanlin, and I think I can pronounce your name now, CMO from Imagine Communications. And finally, to my far right, Molly Connolly, Worldwide Industry Strategist, Media Entertainment, Dell, and Commercial Client Solutions. Now, I'm going to give you a few anecdotes to say what we women have had to deal with. A marketing company I know attended, she was managing director and attended with one of her male colleagues. And the client said, "Oh, I see you've brought your secretary." And yeah, I had an interesting situation at Canadian Broadcasting once where all the news crew happened to be women, and there was a chickenpox outbreak. They changed their schedules so that all the women made sure they got to see the kids, they got the show on the air, and it wasn't a problem. And then when an architect was hired at a broadcast engineering firm, female architect, suddenly the studios that had been built said, "This is fantastic, we've got loos that are big enough for women to get into." So we do have our talents, but not on the funny side always. We've got some really positive things that we can deliver. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, introduce Barbara. Now, Barbara leads the desktop business at Telestream, where she's responsible for several product lines, strategy and development and corporate messaging. And prior to Telestream, Barb managed business and human resources efforts for Coherent and Grass Valley. She holds a BS in organizational behavior from the University of San Francisco. Glodina has quite an impressive list of degrees, and in fact, I think we said to you last year, are you going to stop now? How many more do you want? Dr. Conan-Lostanlin obtained a European PhD in signal processing and telecommunications from Rennes University in France, and she's got an MBA from the University of Toronto, Rotman School of Management. And finally, Molly. She's responsible for developing the global strategy and business development around a global solution portfolio based on professional software, applications, and Dell Precision Workplace. Okay, Molly, let me ask you to start with. In your opinion, what are companies missing by not hiring more women in this industry?
That's a big question. I don't know that it's what they're missing. It's perhaps the opportunity. I think every one of us, men and women alike, we all have our unique capabilities that we can come with to our companies, ways we can contribute. And the biggest challenge for any individual is to understand what are your unique skill sets, abilities that are going to make you stand out and help the business. How can you help the business? How can you contribute? And I think that would be the number one quality or capability that men and women, but women definitely need to own their skill sets and stand up for them.
And what about transferable skills? Because we go to different companies.
That really is huge. I personally have had 3 totally different careers over my, career lifespan, and I learned early on where I had unique skill sets. Everything from customer service to problem solving to what I call juggling balls. What we do in our daily job, sometimes you have to juggle a lot of balls. The big secret is to know which ones are made of glass and which ones are made of rubber. Because you can never get everything done in a day. And it's being able to prioritize and serve the company and the customer. Customer service is number 1, without a doubt.
Barbara, when you joined Telestream, did you realize at the time you were going to be joining a very male-dominated industry?
Well, it's interesting. I joke with the team at Telestream that my training was being the youngest of 5 children and having 3 older brothers. So I'm very comfortable in a male-dominated environment. But, one of the things I wanted to tag on is that when we look at our customer base, particularly if we're selling products, creating and selling products to a broad audience, 50% of our audience is women. And so when we're in an industry that's so male-heavy, we're missing an opportunity to, women designing products or influencing the design of those products for women, I think is a really important aspect, whether it's a product that you purchase or it's a show that you're watching. I think that's really the value that women can add, is that perspective that we just innately have by being a different gender. So we were talking earlier about it not really being a battle, but women really seeing the value that they add, or that they can add to the problem solving, or to the problem there. So,
Glodina, what do you feel about that? What do you think women bring to the table?
The big thing for me is really that we all have a little voice behind that says, am I really worth it? Am I capable?
Yeah.
That's what women tend to do. And I tell you, for me, the day I decided to shut that voice down, it was a big deal. And so the point is, we have... The microphone doesn't work?
Yeah. Okay. So Glodina was talking about a lot of women have this little voice in the back of their head, and her advice was that when you start working with a company, you need to shut down that little voice. One of the things that we have is networking. And women are brilliant for this, for networking. I've always said you put 2 women in a room that don't know each other, after 10 minutes, they know how many kids they've got, when their period is, the whole works. Guys can play squash for 6 years together and know nothing about each other. So how do we network in a male environment?
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Molly.
This is a small industry
with
a long memory. And when you make relations, you have a relationship with a customer or a partner, they may change jobs, but they will always be somebody that you connect with. And it's making that personal connection in the sense of understanding who they are, what are their goals, how can you support one another. Networking is about support, supporting one another, whether it's male or female. But I feel very fortunate in my career that the people that I've known in broadcasting, in media and entertainment, I've known them for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And they may change from one job to another, which is quite common when particularly in motion pictures and other forms of media than broadcasting, people will go by the job, right? It's contract labor. Having that network of people that you can help one another advance, help one another when they need either a business solution, maybe they need a job. In fact, some of the best placements of people in jobs in this industry have been through networking. Not any other fashion or way, because people have a level of trust.
Yeah.
And I think it's the kind of integrity that you bring that will determine how strong your network is.
As my mother always used to say, Janet, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Okay, how have you networked, Glodina, in your career, and where have you found it difficult at times in a male environment?
What's been really important for me was to network with my mentors and their network. So very early on in my career, I worked with a women mentor that I really looked up to, and they taught me exactly what you just described. So I think the element of networking also comes with who you look up to. what are your models, and what are you trying to achieve. And so now that I can give back, I'm trying as much as I can to reach out to other women, even if they might not feel that they can do it. So I think it's opening up also. It's saying you can reach out to me, come to me. I want to help you.
Yeah.
So
Barbara, how do you choose mentors? How do we tell younger people, younger women entering the industry, how to find a good mentor?
Well, I think that there are so many choices, and I think we will have arrived at the point of the future that we all imagine when we look to mentors as either men or women, and we don't feel that we have to really try to pull our girls or pull our younger or less experienced folks up, that they will feel that they have that capability all on their own. So I think we do have a lot of work to do, but it's, mentorship is such an important part of our continued evolution. I have mentors today that are very important to me to continue to grow and evolve. But I think it's about communication and having that willingness and openness to want to engage and want to help others. Sometimes our lives get really busy and it can be difficult, but to reach your hand out and say I'm here, or have somebody do that for you is I think the first step.
Yeah, Molly.
I'd like to add, Janet, that I think it's very important to join any kind of trade association or group that you can as early as possible and network in these organizations. Don't be shy. Reach out with your hand and say, hi, my name is, and get to know people that way in ways that you learn about what they're doing. Another, networking is also figuring out in life, what you want to be when you grow up, because quite frankly, you may be multiple things throughout your lifespan. I'm a strong believer in what we called information interviews, where you actually ask somebody, well, tell me what it is you do. Because a job title is nothing compared to what they actually do.
Definitely.
And so by listening to somebody tell you what they're doing in their role, it sparks something. It sets the endorphins off if it's something that you might feel passionate about. And all of us, I think every one of us on your panel today, we are where we are because we passionately love what we're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We love it. We've all had diverse careers. We've all had fun. Hopefully, I hopefully have been successful. I know you guys have been successful. How do we persuade women that there are interesting jobs like we've had in the industry? Is it education? Or is it the fact that, and I read a study this morning, that for some reason, 15 to 16-year-old girls are shying away from science because it's the time when they're wanting to be sexy and find a boyfriend, and so they are shying away. What have we got to do to try and educate that you can have a fun job in technology, you can have a fun job in production?
Well, I think the most important thing that we can do is live by example.
Yeah.
And so that we show in our everyday lives that we are actually doing that. We're involved in the Girls Who Code program in our community, and live in a community that has Grass Valley Group and AJA and Telestream, so we have a lot of technology and a lot of media and entertainment focus in our community. And I attended a Girls Who Code event, and there were also boys on the panel, and it was interesting to me because the girls said that their roles in their organization were to organize and to do these they had non-technical roles in this Girls Who Code organization. So I think that that was a little disappointing to me because I wanted them to be creating robots and writing programs, and so again, there's a lot of work to do, but we've got a lot. There's a groundswell of interest. And I think as companies, technology is a difficult environment to recruit into right now, and finding diversity at any level is continually challenging. So a lot of work. It's a great topic. I'm so glad we're having this, this conversation today.
Glendina, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that we are in a great opportunity in this industry right now, which is obviously technology driven, but it's going through a great transformation about how content is being produced, delivered and consumed. And therefore, I think that maybe, in a way, I want to reuse what you used earlier, which is we've got to make it a little bit sexier for the girls so that they feel they can contribute. and share our models. You don't have to be an engineer to be sitting here. Number one, you can be one and become more business oriented. I think we have all the flavors, but that I think we need. So I believe in education. I believe in sharing in the community. So that's what I'm trying to do myself.
Yeah, Molly.
I think that I think we're at the cusp of something very exciting. And we're in the third wave of computing. You know, we started out with mainframes. We went to, you know, PCs, smartphones. People now, everybody, whether it be a child with a smartphone, everybody's creating content, taking video, editing video, putting it on YouTube. We have more content being created now by girls and boys.
Right. Absolutely.
And they're learning younger and younger. So I'm very hopeful. I'm exceptionally hopeful because of the advent of immersive technology, whether that's AR or VR, the predominance of, you know, the pervasiveness of the tools, the democratization of the tools to use to create the videos, to edit the videos and publish the videos, that we're going to see more and more girls, because they're doing it today, moving up into this as a field. And back to the question on education, it's like, do you really like making videos? Well, you know, there's a career in that. There's a great pathway for you. You're doing a darn good job doing what you're doing right now just for fun. Think about it as a career path.
Well, I know certainly when I got involved in high definition television, I was interested in it. I didn't know I was going to be production manager on the first feature film that went, and it was before Star Wars in HD. It was Bob Hoskins, or work with Robbie Williams on the technical side of HD. And I think we need to educate women that it isn't just sitting behind a computer or a soldering iron doing things. Okay, Barbara, I remember when I was a pilot, having a guy come in saying, "I'd like to speak to a pilot, please." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, no, I'd like to speak to a pilot." In your experience, how many times have you found yourself having to bite your tongue? And in regards to how you treated situations?
Well, you know, I tend to laugh them off.
And any advice as well for dealing with them?
I try to not let that get under my skin. I believe that all in all, people are generally good and they have good intentions. And that culturally, you know, culturally they may have been brought up in an environment where it's just commonplace to, you know, assume certain things. And so I just try to prove it with my actions that you know, I am the person, and maybe the person in charge, and the person, you know. So I don't hold it against people, but I continue to push forward and not shrink back from that, because the worst thing that we can do as women is when someone is doubting who we are in a particular situation, is to then believe them and shrink back. And so it's just, you hold your space, you hold your power, and you continue to move through that, whatever that situation is, with integrity.
That's Claudina's little voice in the back, isn't it?
The little voice in the back.
Yeah, I love that.
Shut it up.
Yes. Okay. Tell me about the gender balance in your companies, Molly.
Well, there's certainly more men than women at Dell. But there are many powerful women at Dell. So I think every individual has a strong voice. I'm absolutely one of the luckiest gals on earth. I feel that I've found my tribe. And that's important. There are many women that I work with that have engineering backgrounds, those that don't, but it's how we bring together our collective abilities and intellect to solve the solutions of our customers. And that's the most important thing. It's not a gender issue, it's contribute. How can you contribute? How can you make our customers delighted? And that's the most important thing. But I certainly believe, as my colleagues here would say, that there have definitely been mentors, both female and male mentors, but having strong leadership that are of, you know, women as strong leaders, but also men who recognize the importance of having gender balance. And I think that each one of us needs to pull one another up.
And to that point, gender balance is not a woman's issue.
No.
No.
And that is something that I think oftentimes people look to women to solve the problem. And to your point, it's a collective problem that
It
we
is.
all have to come together and solve. And we make healthier, better organizations the more balance we have, not only in gender, but in all forms of thinking and approaches. Again, it's not a women's issue.
No.
And
Every man had a mother.
yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it is a change management issue as
Yeah.
well. In our company at Imagine, we have, I think at the top level, we have a very diversified team, both from a generation, from origin, from gender, etc. And I think we've got to show the industry that change management is possible, because this industry is going through major transformation.
Yeah.
We've got to show that we can transform ourselves as well. So I think that's the example that we put forward are very important, and sort of fostering them within the company is one of the key things that we are doing.
Yeah. What's the gender balance like at Telestream?
It's very good. On our executive team, we've got a lot of men, a lot of women, or several women, throughout the company we have. I think we have good balance in our engineering ranks. Although we have a lot of female engineers, some of them tend to be more on the business side. But from an engineering recruiting point of view, as I said before, engineering recruiting it's challenging, just given our marketplace and the amount of computer science degree individuals we're pumping out of our educational institutions, and then finding that the gender balance there is a bit more of a challenge. But again, to me, the goal is let's hire really talented people. And we've got a lot of really talented men and a lot of really talented women, and I'm really proud of the environment and the organization that we've created.
Do you think with time this is going to change? Because if I was at a party last night and talking to some of the guys, and I sort of said, why don't you think that there are more women? And two of them were in their 20s, and they said there's not a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
The guys who were 45 to 50, well, women have got to be strong and they've got to be fit. And I'm thinking, is it the under 40s who grew up with mothers who were working? So do you agree with me that it's going to be a time?
It is a generational issue. Well, not an issue anymore, I think. And I look at myself for my children as I did those degrees, as you described. I felt bad for them, but at the same time, I said to my daughter and my son, this is an example. You're going to go through this for yourself. So. That's what we have to do.
What unique factors can women bring to the industry? Are there any unique factors?
Well, I think that the way that, without overarching generalizations, because those are dangerous, that women do bring a different perspective just by nature of our gender and our cultures. So I think that that's an important thing. As I was mentioning before, we are servicing a male and female audience, no matter what we're doing, and of course there is a lot more diversity that goes into all of that. But to have an organization that is designing and building and servicing and selling products that has that balance, I think we just become a healthier organization.
Nadina, what do you think is unique?
I think there are studies that are showing that the bringing a little bit more emotional intelligence in an organization is good. And in fact, women do that. The way we approach problem solving is different. And I think we shouldn't shy away from it and transform ourselves into tough leaders or trying to, no, we should just use our strength as women. And that's another thing that I'm personally pushing around, because I learned it late, I would say, in my career. So I think that's a big takeaway.
And Molly?
Well, I'll pass on this because, I think that we, as individuals, we bring our best foot forward. And it's not a gender issue to me. I think that it's up to every individual to be the best they can be.
Okay, any final comments, Barbara?
I think it's an exciting area of discussion. When I think about diversity, I think about it maybe in larger terms than just gender, so it's a rich topic.
This has been enlightening, and we haven't finished because we're going to come back after the break. We're going to take a short break. I want to thank very much Molly Connolly, Glodina Costin-Lostellen, and Barbara DeHart. Thank you very much, and please stay for the other half of the... Stay with us, guys. We'll be back in 5.
Hi, my name is Elijah Rosario, and I'm currently a student at Full Sail University. and I'm taking up recording arts. You are now watching NAB Show Live by Broadcast Beat.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat. Here's your host, Janet West.
Welcome back, everybody, to NAB Show Live, where we are talking about sex, but not sexy products. We're talking about gender balance in the industry and how we can try and improve or increase the number of women in the industry. It's my great pleasure in part 2 to introduce you to Amy DeLuise, independent producer-director and author. Got a new book out, Real People on Camera. And Amy is an expert in creating high-impact non-fiction digital content. With more than, 400 productions to her credit, Amy's a leader in the field of short-form digital storytelling and has more than 40 Creative Excellence Awards. She was also honored with the Woman of the Year Leadership Award for Women in Film Video in Washington, D.C. for her leadership in the industry. And sitting next to her is Karen Cohen, Karen is IABM's main representative and senior manager in North America. Now, Karen's responsibilities include recruiting new members and supporting existing members, developing new business relationships and increasing the awareness of the IABM in the vendor and broadcasting communities, and growing the profile of the IABM throughout the North American media industry. Now, let me start with you, Amy. What can companies do to be more supportive of women in this industry?
Well, there's a number of things that we've found, at least from with my Women in Film hat on, as well as my Gals and Gear hat on, which we did here yesterday at NAB Show. First of all, there's some really simple things that companies can do, like take names off of resumes when they're reviewing resumes for technical jobs. Mm-hmm. And this helps not just women, but people from with diverse backgrounds. I mean, I think that there have been a lot of studies that show that responses to ethnic names may be different when a resume is being reviewed. So there's some very, very basic things. There are things inside companies. One of the things that we talked about at last year's Gender Gap panel was that after meetings, frequently women will be asked to help with the cleanup or to bring the coffee into the meeting, even if they're very high-level women. And sometimes they'll do it, which is not a problem, but then it might be better if you have a rotating schedule. So one of the companies that I work with actually has a rotating schedule for the cleanup of the kitchen. And so it's not gender, so those are some really easy things. The harder things I think that we need to work on are making sure we have a pipeline of women, and so I think mentoring is really important. Yeah. And that's something that we work on very hard through Women in Film, just through our organization, is to try to pair people both formally and informally with mentors in the industry so that they have somebody they can call, and even men can be mentors to women, of course. I've had many male mentors in my career, I'm sure we all have. Mm-hmm. So I think those are some of the things that we have to do a better job of and be more intentional about.
Okay. What do you feel there, Karen?
I agree, and I agree on the mentoring part. Early in my career, my initial bosses were women, and my mother was an entrepreneur, and so I was kind of raised with that mentality that there's nothing we can't do. So I'm all about empowering that next generation to know that there's no limit for them.
Yeah. Now, the IABM last November, I believe it was, gave an award for Woman of the Year. Was it difficult to get nominees?
No, I think there's a couple of standouts in the industry. I mean, obviously we are outnumbered, and there are a few. I think there are more that we're maybe not aware of, possibly because they're just not as vocal or feel the confidence to be the lead on that. So I think there's more work to be done there because the talent is there.
So is that a problem? Women actually just get on with the job rather than saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah, I've heard that in other panels where the confidence thing came up, which was a little bit shocking to me because I've never felt that way. I've never seen a difference in genders. It's been about the person and their talent. So hopefully women will start to feel that way, that it's about their talent and not their gender.
What do you feel on that, Amy?
Well, I do think that I see women not always putting themselves out there for those kind of awards, or I see the same women, and then the industry kind of just goes to those same kind of go-to women. So that was sort of one of the things with our Gals and Gear panel yesterday, that we tried to I mean, certainly there were women that many people knew, but many didn't know. And they didn't even know that they were already right here at NAB Show. A lot of people, when we said we're going to put together an all-women panel for an hour, you know, they're like, oh, where are you going to get them? I'm like, trust me, we're here. So,
well, we've managed to this session.
Exactly. So I think it's a combination. We need to reach out and remind them that they need to be putting themselves out there, and they need to be putting, we as women need to be putting ourselves out there.
Okay. You guys know that in this industry there are quite a lot of associations that often we girls say, oh God, it's the old boys network. How do we break that glass ceiling?
Gosh. I have to say, I sort of felt that way about the IABM for years. I spent the first half of, the majority of my career in this industry as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I started my own business. So it, it's still running, about 20 years.
Yeah.
And the majority of our employees are women. And that's what, where I came from. So when the opportunity to move to the IABM came up, I didn't really think about it from a gender perspective.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, when I did get the position, I had a male editor friend who said, wow, they put a woman in a position of power? And which was kind of shocking to me. So I think traditionally that's what it was, but as the previous panel said, I think the next generation, it won't be that way.
But I remember, I won't say the company, but one company that I worked for, the director of engineering said, we're going to pay her how much? She's a woman. That's changed though now, unfortunately. What do you feel about the glass ceiling?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things going on. One, I mean, there's an interesting study of film schools that shows that when at the entry level of film schools, they are equal gender balance-wise, 50-50 men and women. But when we look at those graduates coming out 5 and 10 years out, the women are not getting the directing jobs. And I know this is a discussion that we've had at Sundance as well, and our colleague, Chapter Women in Film LA, has been very involved in Sundance and trying to kind of work on this issue. And I think a lot of it is that kind of old boy network, that a woman can have a film that gets rave reviews at Sundance, and a man can have the same response to a great film, and he will get hired on the next feature as a director, and she will not get hired by a major studio. And the studios know this. And it's something we really have to work on inside the industry. We have to break down those preconceived notions that a woman can't be successful, or that she might not be able to manage a bigger budget. In my budgeting class yesterday, I was glad to see a lot of young women, and I want them to know that they can manage big budgets just as well as the guys can. So it's a combination of issues that we have to tackle.
Yeah. In the previous session, talked a bit about education. Do we need more communication in the industry? For example, I actually contacted one of the major associations in broadcasting and asked, just for this session, can you give me some sort of feedback as to why you feel that there is not enough women, or not an equal amount of women in the industry? And the reaction is, oh, you're crazy, there's not a problem. So did we actually need to say we can bring a lot more to the party? How do you feel about that? Do we need better communication within the industry?
We're such a small industry, and a lot of us have been around for a long time, and it's really about relationships. So I'm not so sure it's a gender issue. I think maybe it is a little bit more, women need to feel more confident. They can do these roles and just go for it. I don't think there's a big bias, perhaps on a corporate level and maybe on a regional basis. There's that culture internally. But I think we can all overcome it. I think in the end, it comes down to talent. You can do the job and you put it out there, and you need to go for it.
Do you think a lot of women are put off, for example, in broadcasting? There are some jobs where you're out on the road. So if you're going on an OB, for example, do you think they're put off because if they've got families, it's too much time away?
You mean to hire? I don't think it is as much as it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, especially with the technology now that people can telecommute. And so I think the opportunities have changed there, where we can actually do both roles, be a professional and a mother at the same time. And I think because we're women and we can multitask, we figure out how to get on that plane and take care of the baby at the same time.
I think I can speak to this as a working director. Producer is on planes all the time. I couldn't do it without a supportive partner. My husband is really supportive. He travels a lot for work as well. And so we have to work it out. And I think that that's possibly a generational difference. I mean, there's a generation before me that might have been very skeptical about having the mother of their children on the road as many days as I am. So, so I think some of this, you know, is evolving. I certainly see younger people, their partners, they have no concerns about being able to both work, you know, as much as they want to work.
And not just in broadcasting, but in other fields as well. There's a reluctance sometimes for a woman to go for a particular job because she's thinking, well, I might want to have a baby and I'd like to at least have 9 months off, that sort of thing. How do we deal with that in broadcasting? Because it's a small industry. We can't keep hiring in part-timers to replace maternity leave. How did you manage your maternity leave?
Gosh, well, again, it was my company at the time, and I had 2 male business partners, so they were extremely supportive. One was a parent, so had been through it before, and also with the the technology, the ability to work from home. But I did have a full-time nanny, and that's I chose to pay for that because both my husband and I had to work, and that's what we needed to do to make it happen.
I think there's a reason why the largest number of small business entrepreneurs are actually women. We learned that if we wanted to control the variables in our lives and also be able to make those decisions, that we had to be the one making the call. So I started my production company when I was very young, and I ran that for all the years that I had young children, and it just helped me be able to, basically, if I had to close my door and pump breast milk before a meeting, then I was the boss, so I could do that. It might have been a lot harder if I was at somebody else's corporation. So.
Well, from my perspective, when I was at Canadian Broadcasting, I was the only female, and I said I wanted to go back on a scale. So 2.5 days the first year, 3 days, but I'd never said I'll be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I said I will be there for every meeting that's important. I'll be at the end of the phone, and it actually worked. And it was kind of fun doing a mums and tots group in the morning with row, row, row your boat, and then sitting in a technical meeting in the afternoon. It kind of was refreshing to attack some of those meetings. So I'm suggesting that perhaps women should, based on their own circumstances, perhaps it's get a nanny or whatever you need to do, but negotiate with your boss the best thing, and don't think, oh, well, I can't take the job because they won't do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and I also think women are changing the environment in the workplace because of that. And men, too. Men are asking for paternity leave. Men want to spend time with their families. This is not just a women issue. I think it's a family issue, and people are saying, it's insane to work 90 hours a week. We need some practicality here. So the telecommuting and all of that is part of it. So it's a changing environment.
Okay.
And if you want to get the best people, you have to change with that environment.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So, education. What do you think we could do to help educate women that this is a fun industry?
Right. I've said before, I think if every woman in this industry went to their local elementary school or local high school and said, this is what I do, it would make a big, big difference, because this industry, we don't necessarily have a traditional education path to get into it.
Definitely
so
not.
How do you even know that it exists? I certainly never knew it existed, in the early days. So I think on a local level, that would make a big difference if we each went home and said, this is what I do, have that career day and share it with the kids.
Okay. What sort of education? You're a filmmaker, so...
Well, I always volunteer to go to my kids' schools and show behind-the-scenes footage of myself directing on the set. I just think it's a good thing to do. And actually, for the Gals in Gear program, we created kind of an organization within Women in Film, and we want to roll out Girls in Gear. And the idea would be to take those women that we have put together as kind of a speakers bureau, so that when there's a school event, we can say, oh yeah, we have somebody in Chicago, we have a DP in LA who can come and visit you, who's a woman. Just because kids see careers based on television shows. They basically know that they're doctors and lawyers and people working in CSI.
Oh, they want to be a reality star.
That's really all they know. So we can go a lot farther, and I particularly want them to know that there are careers for women behind the camera, the technical positions, the engineering positions.
And sales. In this industry, I think sales is an untapped market for women to get into, because, again, we're largely selling to men.
Yes.
So I think it's a big opportunity.
Okay. You did the Gals in Gear event. What did you learn from that, and what's the next step for Gals in Gear?
Well, one thing I learned was people were pretty excited about it. I mean,
Good.
a lot of people said yes, including NAB right from the start, so I have to be very thankful to them, and Black Magic, who supported us. And I think that's really actually what gender diversity and all kinds of diversity initiatives are about. It's about somebody stepping up and saying, yes, yes, I will hire that person who doesn't look the same as everyone else on the set. Yes, I will hire that young woman and train her. You know, that's what it's about. It's about stepping up when you have the power to do it and saying yes.
Yeah.
So you talked earlier a little bit about perhaps taking the gender off a CV when somebody's making an application. Do you think women do better by networking and getting to know people to get the jobs in this industry rather than just sending a CV in with the other couple of thousand that might be going in? Do you think women need to approach to get a job differently than men?
I think this industry, again, we're so small and niche, it is relationship driven. I think the read NAB surveys over the years that the #1 reason people come to the show is networking. And I think that's what it's about. It's, at least in my career, it's always been relationship driven. I have friends that I've looked forward to for the last 25 years to see here, and I just don't see it on a gender level. I think it's networking and who you are and what you know and sometimes who you know.
Absolutely. No, networking is critical. Nobody gets a job just from sending out a CV, but often that last step, after they've done the networking, they've gotten recommended, somebody else has gotten recommended, somebody's looking at those last few steps, then yes, there is going to be somebody looking at that document. So I think there's things we can do in both ways. And I also think we just need to get more women here to NAB show, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say it's like the only conference I go to where there's no line at the ladies' room, and it kind of pisses me off.
I need that when I'm going to go on a show, though, because I need to go quick.
So come on out,
It's true.
ladies. Come here because the networking is great, the education is great, the technology is amazing, and you get to meet amazing people.
Yeah, the people are great.
Okay. What sort of unique thing, you work with a lot of crews, so for the technical people in your crews, what unique features does a woman bring to a production?
When I hire a woman DP, you know, for example, she tends to be a little bit more collaborative than some of the men. She has all the same gear, she can do all the same things, but it tends to not be quite as focused on, you know, here's my equipment list of 9 million things. We tend to focus on the story first a little bit more. The guys tend to want to tell me all the last things that they just bought. That's just my personal experience. It may not be the same for other people. So I do think women are a little bit more instinctively collaborative, and it certainly makes a difference on the set to have more women on the set. And I know that from studies that have been done, when there are more women on set, the stories in front of the camera do tend to evolve a little differently.
Oh, that's interesting.
In narrative film, there have been some studies done about just women might have more lines in the movie after, you know, a lot of things get changed on set, especially in narrative film. It's not as baked as you might think. And that's not my special field, but I've talked to enough people to know, and there have been studies that have been done that show that things evolve a little differently when there are more women behind the camera than not. So we need to make some of those changes. But I do think it's a more dynamic environment, generally when it's a more diverse, not just gender diversity, but ethnic diversity too, is an issue we really need to address behind the camera and in the edit suites. Edit suites can be very all male too, and all white male. So it depends on the company and their pipeline for those jobs. So I know my colleague Kylie Pena has been working very hard on that issue to try to make sure there are more women in post.
Okay. Now, one thing that was interesting, a few years ago, I ran a session at IBC on sustainability, and we know that about 5% of women are in the industry. I had 30 people on that session, but 28 were women.
Interesting.
Is it women that are going to drive sustainability in this industry?
Gosh, I'm not convinced it's a gender issue at all.
Okay.
I think women maybe have a little bit more of a conscious perception of sustainability.
Social responsibility.
Yeah, I think so. And perhaps that's because we're mothers and we're thinking about the next generation and what we're leaving, you know, for our kids. But I'm not convinced that that particular issue is a gender-related issue.
Amy?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, do you have any other comments that would give advice to women in the audience and those at home?
Well, you mentioned kids, and we all have kids, and I have 2 boys. So I feel like my job is to teach those boys that women can be strong. You know, when my when my younger child complains a little bit that mommy's away, I'm like, yeah, but I'm the director, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I sort of want him to know what I'm in charge of and that women can do stuff. And women can be, I mean, I have to be their role model as a female, so I hope they get that strong female role model.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, and I have a daughter.
Okay.
And early on, when she was little, I was probably the only working mother at that age. Most of the women at that point had chose to stay home and raise their kids, take a pause in their career, and I didn't. And she was a little concerned about it. Why do you have to work? And my answer wasn't because of money. My answer was because it makes me me.
Right.
And I can be a better mommy if I get to be me.
I absolutely love my career.
Yeah,
I'm
love
the
it.
same way.
Yep.
I mean, I just, yeah. So
And I think the kids benefit from that because they see it.
Right.
You know, boys and girls. They see the role that women can play, and that, to me, there is no glass ceiling. The only person stopping you is you.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So as long as we keep telling our kids, and boys as well as girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my son has a bit of a problem because he thinks all his girlfriends have to be able to be pilots and do various things. But yeah, that's by the by. Girls aren't going into science as much in some countries as others. In the UK, we're actually finding that girls are excelling in science and technology. But somehow there's something that happens at 15 and 16 because they want to dress up and be attractive to men and get a boyfriend. How can we tell them that actually when you work in technology, it doesn't mean that you're not feminine?
Right.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I went to an all-girls school, and there's a lot of studies that show that girls who go to all-girls schools, particularly in the middle school years, which is when the sciences really get introduced, the hard sciences get introduced, are much more likely to go on to science careers. There's been several STEM studies that have shown
In an all-girls school?
In an all-girls school.
Interesting.
And I can just say from my own personal experience, and then watching my kids and the teenage environment that they live in, that not having boys there just totally took that out of the equation. Like, nobody had to worry about raising their hand and looking too smart or looking too dumb in front of a boy. Nobody worried about what they wore to school because of a boy. All of our, you know, most of our teachers were women. All of our role models in terms of our clubs, you know, the publisher of the school newspaper was a woman. You know, the team captain was a woman. All of the leadership roles were girls. So, you know, so not everybody can send their girl to an all-girls school, but I think that we definitely need to somehow bake that into the environment, and some of it is actually helping teachers realize that they have some gender biases. There's been a study by AAUW showing that even women teachers who think they're calling on girls equally to boys are not. And a lot of this starts in the middle school, teen years. So I think there's more work to be done there.
I mean, I was looking at a report this morning from WC Divided, the media gender gap, and that was saying that there's a far smaller proportion of women guests on shows on television, even when they're talking about technology or politics.
Have you seen the studies about the number of lines that women say in movies?
No, I haven't.
Go take a look. It's pretty shocking. Even when there's a woman main character, there's almost always a majority of lines for men characters in the movie.
And we've usually got a little bit better memory.
So, yeah, it's a pretty shocking study. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it's got to get done earlier on.
Any comments, Karen, on the young girls? How, I mean, Amy talked about all girls schools, not a problem, but
yeah, and at least in my daughter's school, we have a pretty robust STEM program, and again, it's not girls and boys tonight. So I think education, at least in the United States, the STEM program is now starting to have some legs, and it's part of the regular curriculum. And I also think it's incumbent on us, you know, as parents, to encourage our girls to do that. There are a lot of girls who code opportunities. I've sort of tried to get my daughter in that direction. She's more of a creative type, wants to do special effects makeup. But the fact that she hasn't come to me and said, I don't think I can do that, that's what's interesting to me, is just giving them that attitude that there is nothing that you can't do.
Yeah, no, I think that's very positive. So we've talked about education, we've talked about networking, we've talked about communication. Women, come and join this industry. We've had a lot of fun. My three guests beforehand did. So believe it or not, we're out of time once again. So I'm Janet West on behalf of Broadcast Beat. Thank you for staying with us. I want to thank Karen Cohen and Amy DeLuise, and Glodina, Molly, and Barbara from the first session. And above all, thank you for watching. And those of you in England who haven't gone to bed yet, do join me this afternoon at 3 o'clock for sustainability. Stay with me. Goodbye from me, and stay safe in Vegas.